get it started now. Freedom, 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 freedom. My freedom begins at Life Force Canada.
Okay, welcome to Life Force Canada. I'm Karen Klassen. We are going through so much in this country right now, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you as we move through this time of transition. There's been an intense footage and reports coming out of Ottawa as we witness these peaceful protesters pleading with the police to see through the misinformation. And Kirsten from the Canadian Frontline Nurses, she was sharing one of her videos. So sad. And this can cause a lot of stress and fear to be triggered in the body. And I also want you to be aware that we are also experiencing a lot of disinformation. There was one of the protesters that stated he was arrested, and all the police did was drive him 20 minutes away from the core and then drop him off, right? We're hearing this. So the police know that there's nothing that they can do. It is all smoke and mirrors, but it's designed to keep us in fear. So do not put your attention on Trudeau right now. It is all theater. It is designed to distract you. The journey we're being called right now is to take an inner journey. And it's a losing battle if we think that Trudeau and any of those satanic worshipers are going to just take a knee. It is a game, and we need to really stop focusing on them and only focus on what you can do in your life, right? I recommend that you listen to my past videos on Life Force Canada YouTube channel. I've been sharing this for a really long time, that you are the power. And every time that we allow anyone like Trudeau or anyone in our family, anyone out there to make you angry, right? We are giving our power away. And that's what they want. They want you to stay small, to be in fear, to be angry. And they've been feeding off of our energy for a very, very long time, just like parasites. And we know this. And you have zero power when you are angry. And they know this. So we're being called right now to be the best version of ourselves. And in order to do this, we need to really disconnect from anyone who's not walking in alignment with truth, who's not aligned with their soul. And at the end of this call, as you know, I offer a meditation to really help you reclaim your power. So this inner work is so important so that we can heal from the past and increase our own personal power. And then we can begin to create the restoration plan for Canada and a bright future for all of us. Okay, I know you're all excited about our conversation with Theo today, but I do have a few updates I just want to share. And Life Force Global is updating a few things, a few websites right now, so please be patient. And I want to thank or really congratulate Chantal for joining UN in Canada. You and Dwayne are a dynamic duo, and we really look forward to your next news broadcast. And the replay from last week, amazing. I received so many emails saying, yay, we need more information like this. It's on, I uploaded it to our YouTube channel. It's called History is a Lie. And I highly recommend if you haven't seen it yet. I did add all the links to the Tartaria rabbit hole for you to enjoy as well. And if you are new here and you just received a link through Zoom, I do recommend that you sign up on our Life Force Canada website. Okay, I had the privilege of meeting Theo Fleury a few times now. The second time we met was through Svetlana of Ezra Wellness a few weeks ago at Dale's office, which I was so grateful for. If you do not know his story, you're going to have your mind blown, that is for sure. As you know, he is a former NHL All-Star, Stanley Cup winner, a gold medalist, a two-time best-selling author, an advocate for mental health. And while he's grateful for the time he's had on ice, he feels honored to have the opportunity to share his story and inspire others to overcome the traumas of the past. He has won many awards, including the Canadian Humanitarian Award for his contribution in combating child abuse and his outstanding efforts in promoting healing and recovery. And he's very passionate about the freedom movement. I'm sure he's going to share a few things about that. And he has a powerful message here that I just think it's divine timing that he's here. And he's on the path to destigmatizing the shame associated with trauma by encouraging relationships and a holistic approach to mental health. So please welcome Theo. Hello, Theo.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Karen.
So glad you're here. Oh my gosh. I so appreciate how raw and real you've allowed yourself to be in sharing your truth over the years. And I know you have inspired so many to do the same. For those who really don't know your story, can you share it with us and how it
Sure.
led to you writing your book, your first book?
Yeah. Geez, where do I start? Well, I think you guys are all aware of my very successful professional life that I spent the first 40 years of my life in the sport of hockey. And everything I have in my life, I learned being a part of a team. And I guess my earliest experience with trauma started. Both my parents experienced childhood trauma in their life, and that manifested itself into addictions as a coping mechanism to suppress the emotional pain and scars that were left behind from their own experience. And so I grew up. Both my parents. My mom was a prescription pill addict. My dad was a alcoholic. And so I grew up in a home where there was a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness, and some violence. And at the time, I didn't know that was my first experience with trauma, but it was. And then as a phenom hockey player with a dream of one day playing in the NHL, I ran into a coach who promised me a one-way ticket to the NHL if I followed him. And over a 2.5-year period from the ages of 14 to 16, he raped me 150 times over a 2.5-year period. And so what I was left with was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. And wasn't too long after that I discovered this wonderful brown substance that came in a bottle called alcohol. And I became an instant alcoholic. And then I graduated up the ladder, using marijuana and hashish, and then finally finding my favorite drug, which was cocaine. And anybody that knows anything about cocaine, it's a really fast trip to the bottom of the gutter. And that's where I was 17 and a half years ago. I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth, ready to pull the trigger and end my life, not because I wanted to die, but because I was completely exhausted from living in emotional pain and suffering for the majority of my life. And I had tried everything on the planet to get rid of it. And the one thing I guess I hadn't tried was honesty, openness, and willingness. And this lady appeared out of nowhere, asked me if I would like to write a book. And so in 2009, I came out with my autobiography called Playing with Fire, where I basically threw up on the pages, 300 and some pages, and told my story. And, I remember 4 days before I was going to Toronto to launch the book, and I can tell you that I was shitting in my pants, and I was so scared and so afraid because I didn't know how all of you were going to react to what was in this book. And I also knew that I was going to go do a whole bunch of media, and I knew that the only thing the media would be interested in would be to re-victimize me at every opportunity. And so I took those 4 days and spent them on my computer researching every single thing I could find on the subject of child sexual abuse, because I wanted to get a story of hope and healing and recovery out to the masses. So, so I show up in Toronto and I do 300 interviews in the first 4 days that I'm there. And just like I predicted, the only thing they were interested in was the gory details of my sexual abuse. But because I'm a very smart and bright guy and spent 35 years in the media, I knew that I didn't have to answer one question that they asked me. And so in every interview, I went in with an agenda. I had 5 points that I wanted to get across. And so I was able to get this amazing story out of hope and healing and recovery and all these great messages. And then the next thing on the docket was the first book signing. And my expectations for this book were really low. I didn't think anybody was going to read this book. I thought I'd show up and sign 10 books, go to the next town, sign 10 books, so on and so forth. So I show up at the biggest Indigo chapter store in all of Canada in downtown Toronto on Yonge Street. And I walk through the front doors of the bookstore, and there was 400 people standing in line. And I'm like, what the hell are all these people doing here? I'm not Wayne Gretzky. I'm not Mario Lemieux. I had a great career, but why are all these people here? So I sit down at the book table and I start signing books. And out of the corner of my eye, I spot this guy in line. And he's got my book clutched against his chest, and his face is buried in the floor, and he's walking really slow. And so I follow him all the way in the line. And he gets to the front of the line. He puts the book on the table, looks me in the eye, and says, "Me too. Me too." And that's when my life completely changed forever. Because I always thought that I was supposed to be just a hockey player. Well, God had bigger plans for me. And that day I really stepped into the true purpose for my life. And that was to tell my story to as many people as I possibly could. And what happened after that was I got run over. Like, I got completely run over, because every book signing, every speaking engagement, every workshop that I was putting on, 5, 10, 15, 20 people were coming up at every single event and telling me their story. And so I I became the poster boy for sexual abuse, which was not my, that's not what I wanted. And so I was like, okay, like I really don't like this role and I need to change it. So I'm like, what's another word that I can use instead of sexual abuse? And so I figured out that the word was trauma, just trauma in general. Well, when I switched to trauma and stopped using the word sexual abuse, guess what happened? I brought all of you into my space because we all have trauma, right? And if you have parents, you've experienced trauma in your life, right? Ha 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 ha. That's supposed to be a joke. And so when I really started to focus in on trauma, I discovered that there was two other things attached to everybody's trauma story. One of them was mental illness and the other one was addiction. Okay. So trauma, mental health, and addiction all live in the same house and they aren't separate because we're traumatized leaves us in emotional pain and suffering. And that emotional pain and suffering is mental illness, mental wellness, whatever you want to call it, right? And so how do we deal with this emotional pain and scars that are left behind from these traumatic experiences? Well, we tend to gravitate towards the dark side of life and we get involved in addictions as a coping mechanism to suppress the emotional pain and suffering that's left behind, right? So, drugs, alcohol, food, sex, gambling, workaholism, you name it, right? And so what happened was, I brought everybody into my space. And what I've really sort of learned is that when we're healing from trauma, there's a word that is incredibly important when we're in this space, and it's called vulnerability. Okay. And what is vulnerability? Vulnerability is storytelling, right? Storytelling, being honest, being open, and being willing to talk about your trauma. And what that vulnerability does is it creates safety. And then when you have safety, that's when the magic of healing happens, is when we feel safe and trusted and not judged and loved, cared for. I believe you. These are the type of things that we say to people who find that courage and that strength to open up and talk about, their own traumatic experiences. And, I told you a pretty crazy trauma story, but trauma is very subtle. It's very, very subtle. Could be as simple as, I was bullied in school. My parents got a divorce. My grandma died. My grandpa died. Somebody close to me died. I was in a car accident. It doesn't matter. It's really subtle. And so, how do we heal? How do we heal? How we heal is exactly what we're doing tonight. That's how you heal. You get a bunch of people in a room, you use vulnerability to create safety. And then once you have safety, people just start popping up all over the place. And I'll tell you a story about safety. So after I wrote my second book, Conversation with a Rattlesnake, I wrote with a lady called Kim Barthel, who's an occupational therapist with a degree in neuroscience. And we, well, it was funny because, the first time we were together, I invited her to come to Calgary to stay at my house for the weekend. And so she shows up and you know, we have this 72-hour conversation. Like, I think we might have slept, you know, 3 hours in 3 days or 4 days or whatever. And so we're, you know, we're talking trauma, mental health, addiction. We're talking about all this stuff. And it was amazing because she started talking to me about neuroscience. And it was the first time in my life I ever got a perspective from you know, a neuroscience perspective. And at the end of the 72 hours, I realized there wasn't one thing I could have changed about my life. And it wasn't my fault. Nothing that happened to me was my fault, right? The famous scene in Good Will Hunting at the end of the movie where Robin Williams says to Will, wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault. And what happens is we see Will break down. We see Will cry, probably for the first time in his life. And what happens in the next scene? He goes and gets the girl and he goes and gets the job, because he realized that all of this anger and resentment and all this stuff wasn't his fault, right? And really, you know, that's the biggest thing, you know, that you can take away from tonight, is that none of this is our fault. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. And if they knew better, they'd do better, right? So anyways, we write this amazing book. You know, people in our profession call it one of the greatest books ever written on attachment theory. It is being used in 17 universities as a textbook now, because what we did in the book is we modeled a conversation between two people, not a therapeutic relationship, but a therapeutic friendship. A therapeutic friendship. And what we did is we modeled the conversation around how the hell you talk about this stuff, you know, how you talk about being raped 150 times, or how, you know, whatever your trauma is. And so her and I went out on the road, and we were putting on these one-day conferences all over Canada, one-day healing conferences. So we're in Calgary at the Westin Hotel, and we got about 100 people in the room. And so we spent the morning creating this safe space for people. And it was getting around lunchtime. We were breaking for lunch, and I looked over to the right hand of the stage, and there was this guy, and he was fully bought into the process which we were putting out there, right? So we go have lunch, we come back, and I say to him, I go, I've been noticing your nonverbal communication throughout the morning. I go, is there something that you would like to share with the group? And he said, yep. So he stands up and he says, I just want everybody to know that I've never felt this safe in my whole entire life. And he said, I've been carrying around a secret for many, many, many years. And he said, I just want everybody in the room to know that I molested my sister for 11 years. Okay. So we had 3 women in our audience who had been molested by their brothers. Okay. And these 3 women got out of their chairs and walked over to this man and hugged him. And it was the most incredible healing experience that I had ever witnessed in my life. And I went to myself, I want more of that. I want to facilitate more of that. I want to be a part of more of these kind of healing opportunities and healing moments. And sure enough, you know, like I've done 800 speeches in the last 13 years, traveled all over North America, talking about trauma, mental health, and addiction. You know, I think there's less than 12 men in all of North America who speak openly about their sexual abuse experience. And, you know, there's a stat that before I went out on the book tour, it was like 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 3 girls will have some sort of unwanted sexual experience before the age of 18. And I was like, holy cow, if that's like the real stat, like this is nuts. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's way worse than that. And there's just as many boys as girls who get molested. Okay. And one of the most successful businesses on the planet is child and human trafficking. It is a $200 billion industry. And Canada and Alberta are the 2 worst places in the world for this kind of activity. Okay. So for example, there's a 10-year-old girl who is going to be trafficked 10 times somewhere in Alberta tonight. Okay. And who are the biggest consumers of child trafficking? Pedophiles. Pedophiles are the biggest consumers of children. So that's the world that I live in. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't get a break ever. And, you know, I don't even know how many stories I've heard, probably close to 1 million now. And it's, but what's really interesting is the gift, right? The gift of trauma. The gift of trauma, because my trauma experience is now my superpower. It's my superpower, right? Because I was very, I don't even know what the word is. I will say I was fortunate to experience adversity early in my life. Okay. And that adversity turned into resilience. Okay. And once you get the gift of resilience, it's like, bring it on. You know, I'll figure it out. Throw whatever you want at me. I'll figure it out. And a lot of people don't realize that pain, whether that's emotional or physical, is the greatest motivator for change. It's the greatest motivator for change. And, you know, a lot of people, well, it's funny because I in Conversations with a Rattlesnake, one of the chapters is called Sitting in Your Shit. Okay. But sitting in your shit is part of the process of, you know, healing, right? Is, you know, I was a guy that couldn't identify one feeling ever. Like I didn't know if I was happy, sad, glad, mad. Like I had no idea. And so sitting in your, you know, sitting in your crap helps you identify emotions and feelings, right? Whether you're happy, sad, mad, glad, whatever it is. But eventually, you know, you come out of that space, you know, feeling better, right? Because it's part of the process, right? You know, what do they say? This too shall pass, you know, it usually does. And so what's interesting is when you explain to people that their trauma, they, you know, they're like this, right? You know, but once you sort of create trust and you create a safe space and there's no judgment and, you know, there's none of that stuff, you know, those fists, you know, go down by their sides and they really start to open up and they really start to talk about, you know, what happened to them. And, you know, one of the greatest things that I get to witness all the time is I get to watch people get rid of their shame in like a 5 or 10-minute meeting, right? You know, and like I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was speaking at I don't know, there were 60 people in this room in Calgary. It was like a safety, oil and gas safety group, and there were 60 people in the room. So I got up and I shared my story, and after I was done, a bunch of people came up and, you know, were shaking my hand and wanted a picture, wanted to buy a book. But there was a guy standing to the left of the stage, and I knew what was coming, but he wanted to be the last guy. So this guy stands in front of me, looks exactly like Santa Claus. He's got the big beard, he's got the big belly, and he stands in front of me, says, "My name is so-and-so, and I'm 80 years old, and I was molested for 705 consecutive days, and you're the first person I've ever told in my life."
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, you know. And, you know, I have so much compassion and so much empathy for people like that, because I know how much damage I caused in my 40 years of, you know, being sick and dealing with my own traumatic experience. Like, this guy was 80 years old, and I was the first person that he ever told in his life. And so, you know, so I feel so incredibly honored and blessed to be that safe person for, you know, anybody that wants to talk about, you know, what I've been talking about here. So, and you know, and what's interesting is, you know, when it comes to mental health, you know, as a mental health advocate, probably the biggest thing that I face on a daily basis is stigma, the stigma attached to mental health. And all these mental health campaigns start with 1 in 5 Canadians suffer from mental illness. And I'm like, okay, that statement only adds to the stigma of mental illness, because we're shaming the one person who has mental illness, and we're telling the other 4 out of 5, you guys are okay. Okay. But in my experience, it's 5 and 5. It's all of us. And, you know, the biggest epidemic on the planet is not COVID-19. It's mental illness, right? It's mental illness. And so if we're going to get out of this mental illness thing, it's going to take all of us. And it's going to take compassionate, empathetic, forgiving, non-judgmental people. That's how we're going to get out of this.
Yes.
Right? That's how we're going to get out of this. Because in my experience, everybody has a story. And guess what? You get to tell your story whichever way you want. Why? Because it's your story. You know, it's your story, and you get to tell it whichever way you want. And, you know, and I would say 9 times out of 10, I don't ever have to say one word. I don't have to say a word, nothing. As long as I'm present, attuned, and listening, that's all that person needs. And what happens is, it's unbelievable. Their eyes go almost immediately go brighter. Their posture changes, And when they leave, they have a little bit more bounce in their step. Why? Because they don't feel alone anymore. How many people on this call during the pandemic have felt completely alone? Completely alone, right? And when you suffer from mental illness, where's the worst place to be? Where's the worst place to be when you have mental illness? Right here, in your head, in your head, in your head. So where do you need to be? You need to be in your heart space. Because all the good stuff is right here. Compassion, empathy, forgive. All the good stuff is in your heart. But it's interesting that, somehow, the government, big pharma, knows that we're all messed up. Okay, we're all messed up.
Right.
And we have a really hard time connecting and being in relationship. Okay. What's the opposite of addiction? Connection. Right? The opposite of addiction is connection. Right? And so they knew we were all messed up. So they created this virus and they locked us down. They closed the churches. They locked up the rinks, and basically we sat in our houses for 2 years, afraid of connecting with people. Right? And then we saw a spike in mental illness. We saw a spike in opioid overdoses. We saw a spike in suicides. We saw a spike in suicidal ideations because they took away the ability for us to be together, to share, to laugh, to cry, to hug, all those things. And so now we have this crazy epidemic of mental illness, right? And I would prefer tonight if I was in this if we were all in the same room together. That's what I would really want,
So true.
and that will happen. That will happen for sure. That will happen. And what was interesting was, when COVID hit, I was like traveling all over North America, and COVID hit and they shut everything down, and 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, after that 2 weeks, I fell into a deep, dark depression. And, I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, I stopped showering, I stopped going to the bathroom. And I was like, what is going on here? I've spent $1 million on therapy. I've done 10,000 hours of therapy, every type of therapy known to mankind. And here I am, laying in bed. And I was like, what is this all about? What is this about? So I called up my EMDR therapist and I said, you need to help me. I'm losing my shit here. So we do a session and we figure out that all of my sexual abuse has come back. All of my traumas come back. Why? Because the same tactics that my abuser used against me to get me to comply, get me to do what he wanted to do, guess what the government's doing? The exact same thing. The exact same thing. They are using the same tactics of manipulation, coercion, lying, cheating, stealing. It's all the same. It's all the same. And to me, that was a big revelation, right? And that's when I said to myself a long time ago, if I saw abuse, I was going to call it out. And for the last 18 months, I've been very active on social media. I've been doing tons of podcasting and interviews, you name it. to expose these crazy people, these sick people. And another thing I started to do as well was I was listening to a bunch of podcasts from, like I was way down in the rabbit hole, like as far as you can get in the rabbit hole. But there was all these kind of cool characters that would pop up every once in a while. And they were talking about 5D meditation. Okay. And I was like, I'm gonna try that, right? So I go on YouTube and I punch in 5D meditation. Sure enough, there's like 1,000 different types of 5D meditation. So I started doing 5D meditation, and all of a sudden, all the fear that I had was gone, completely gone. It was like I got a Superman tattooed on my chest, and I just went, bring it on. So it's all about the light. It's all about my vibration. It's all about, getting to the next level of consciousness. Right.
So true.
And, and what do we have? We have 129 people on this call. Well, guess what? Guess what your job is to get to the highest vibration you possibly can, as much as you can. Because you know what happens? You start to attract people, because people are like, the hell, you're not depressed, you're not angry, you're not pissed off. No. Why? Because I have faith. I have faith. I've always had faith. I've always had faith. It's kind of ironic because in 4 hours, I will have 6,000 days of continuous sobriety.
Yay, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And that's what it's all about. It's what it's all about. How do I get better? How do I get better? Right? I want to be better today than I was yesterday. Better friend, better husband, better dad, better, overall better, right? And that means I got to get rid of all of, my anger and my resentments and all those things. And what's been really cool is, I ran into people like Svetlana and Trent and Karen and Sherry, like I've run into all these amazing people who are helpers and healers, right? They're helpers and healers. And so when you're on that high vibration, these people just start showing up all the time. It's amazing. They just like they're beamed in from, somewhere else,
You're incredible, Theo. We all just adore you. And I know that you're showing the world that anyone, no matter who they are and what trauma experience they've had, that healing from all types of trauma is possible. Yes. And yeah, we just are in awe of you and your real and honest portrayal of your life. And I know that when you and I were having a conversation at Ladybug Cafe, you mentioned about trauma, right? Is that human experience that we all have, yet many are still feeling alone. And right, they're in that, they can feel alone, and there's a part of them that's still in that denial. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, it's because, the majority of people are afraid of being judged.
Yes.
Right? That's their biggest fear.
Exactly.
But, another thing that I discovered when I was writing Conversation with a Rattlesnake was we discovered 4 things about trauma and what trauma teaches us. And those things become the core of who we think we are. So the first one is abandonment and neglect. Second one, I'm not good enough. Third one, I'm not lovable. And then the fourth one, do I even exist in the world? Right. And so when I discovered those four things, I was like, man, this is what I need to rewire in myself. This is what I need to rewire. And if I can rewire those four things, then I'm going to be good. Well, and how do you do that? Well, I remember Kim saying, well, you need to have a relationship with yourself. And I was just like, what? You know, have a relationship with myself? Like, really? What the hell is that? And yeah, so, I had to learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to take care of myself, start sleeping, start eating properly, start feeding my body the right nutrition, exercise, practice spirituality. And when I wasn't feeling good, I just had to pick up the phone and talk to people and say, you know what, I'm having a shitty day. I'm full of anxiety, or I'm really depressed, or whatever it is, and the more I started to do that, the easier it got, right? Because I'm creating a new habit, right? Like when I felt shitty before, I knew exactly what to do. Call my drug dealer, go get an 8-ball, head down to the local, pub, and absolutely just get annihilated, So that was my habit. So I gotta break that habit, takes time, but yeah. And, I always tell people, find your tribe. And, obviously 129 people at a Life Force Canada meeting, I think you guys found your tribe, right? And that's really important when you're healing, because you can't do this by yourself. You cannot do healing by yourself, right? Because I always say, left to my own defenses, left to me running my own life, is the biggest shit show on the planet when I'm running the show. Okay. Right. And every time I drive the bus always crashes. Right. But September 18th, 2005, guess what? I hit my knees in a washroom and I surrendered. And I turned my will and my life over to the care of God, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, the universe, a tree in my backyard, like whatever, I turned it over and I said, you're running the show. You tell me what to do. I'll go wherever you want me to do. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And guess what? Every day, one person gets put in front of me that needs help. Every day, because I surrender, right? I surrender. I'm not running the show, nor do I want to, and I can honestly say, I have the greatest life you can possibly imagine. I really do, and it's all based on helping people. That's it. Service, which is kind of what you guys are doing, right? Service. When you do service work, you're not inside your own head ever when you're doing service work, ever, and,
I always want our listeners to walk away with something tangible that they can immediately use in their life. And you are just giving us so many gems. So I so appreciate you.
No problem. The 3 words, and it comes from 12-step, is honesty, openness, and willingness. Those 3 things are a huge part of healing, right?
Absolutely.
And you're only as sick as your secrets. You're only as sick as your secrets, right? And when you're able to find that safe space, get rid of all those secrets as fast as you can, right? When you feel safe and you don't feel judged, it's really, really powerful. Like I run a couple groups online, And it is absolutely unbelievable. Like I got a guy in Costa Rica right now, and the first 3 months of our group, he didn't say one word in 3 months. Now we can't shut him up, and now he's in Costa Rica, and tonight he's doing his very first ayahuasca session,
Great.
and has completely turned his life around. It's absolutely been incredible to be a part of his healing journey.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And that's another thing I wanted to ask you, Theo, is in regards to men, because I had seminars years ago that I facilitated called the Evolution of Relationships. And men, a few men would show up because they were dragged there from their wives dragged them there.
Yeah.
And then, right. And then over the years, I just started to see more men showing up, and then men actually coming on their own accord, and then bringing men friends. So I was
Yeah.
starting to see a shift on how men really wanted to start opening up and having conversations with, whether it was their girlfriend or their wife or sibling, whoever. What does your journey look like in regards to how we can support more men in regards to saying yes to this healing journey?
Mhm. I think about, what is a warrior, right? What is a warrior? Well, a warrior is vulnerable. A warrior cries, shows emotion, all of these things. And, I'm the toughest SOB that ever walked the face of the earth. But guess what? I can cry. I can talk about sadness. I can talk about loneliness. I can talk about, whatever needs to be talked about. And I'm still tough. Like I'm not a wimp. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm still tough. But it's that vulnerability piece that we need to talk about more, right? Vulnerability is the key to all of this. I believe, to all of it. And we need to provide spaces, for that kind of vulnerability, right? Like I remember we were doing a mini documentary, and I went to Stony Mountain Penitentiary in it's just outside of Winnipeg. It's one of the biggest prisons in Canada, and I work in the prison system because it's like my absolute favorite thing to do is work in the prison system. So this mini documentary, I had 14 murderers for 14 hours in a circle. We sat in a circle, and this guy talked about how he cut up this person in 22 pieces. And by the end of the session, he told us about all of his childhood trauma, and he didn't cry, like he wailed. And guess what? He was no longer angry, because he had so much sadness underneath all of that anger that he was, because he was in a safe space, and that day was probably the greatest day that I've ever experienced in doing the work that I do, because we laughed together, we cried together, guys got angry, guys got mad, it was just beautiful to watch the process of healing happen. And they were so they had so much courage, and they had so much willingness, and yeah, it was just an incredible day. So yeah, like I don't know what the marketing is around that, but we need to create some when it comes to that.
Thank you, Theo. Thank
Yeah.
you. And yeah, it's incredible how when we start to peel away the layers of the onion and just allow for that little girl or little boy to begin
Yeah.
to show up, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, because you did mention the pharmaceutical industry,
Yeah.
big pharma and billions of dollars, we know, right? And I would love for you to share in regards to how you would encourage others to really let go of relying on the synthetic drugs. We all know that the definition of pharmaceutical in dictionary means purveyor of poison, but so many are addicted to it. So can you share?
For sure. So, you know, the majority of the planet right now is drinking cortisol milkshakes. Okay. Cortisol milkshakes, which is the stress hormone, right? And what's the opposite of cortisol? Oxytocin. And what's oxytocin? Oxytocin is the drug of love and connection. And what oxytocin does is it goes in and sucks up all the cortisol, right? It's like a vacuum cleaner. But you know what's interesting is, so the pharmaceutical companies knew that we were like completely messed up when it came to connection and relationships, right? And they knew that this oxytocin, you know, they had to create something from, you know, that chemical. So they created this drug called Oxycontin. Oxytocin, Oxycontin. So when you look at oxytocin and Oxycontin underneath a microscope, they look exactly the same, except oxytocin or Oxycontin has one little extra arm on it, which makes us highly addicted to it, right? And so, you know, when I work with heroin addicts and Oxycontin users, fentanyl users, I'm like, why are you guys so crazy about this stuff? You know what they tell me? Gives me the warm and fuzzies. So it actually has replaced relationship. Oxycontin actually replaces relationship. And that's why these guys get so hooked on this stuff, right? And they come from, you know, probably a background of, you know, parents were workaholics. There was never any time for them, you know, there was never any relationship, you know, whatever it was. And so yeah, they completely, but what's interesting is big pharma is all synthetic. Okay. And Sherry can probably back me up on this one. Is when I put anything synthetic in my body goes, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. What is that? Right? What is that? And so, yeah, it has a short-term effect for a long-term problem or issue. Okay. But what happens when I try to get rid of that synthetic chemical, where does it have to pass through? Kidney, liver, and intestines, right? So what happens is you build up a sludge of this crap that we can't get rid of. And what happens at the end of every 30-second commercial? They talk about all the side effects. Well, that's that synthetic stuff that you can't get rid of, right? And so I hang around with one of the most powerful medicine men in the world who lives down in Cardston, Alberta, about 2 hours away. And what he tells me is that the cure to every single disease is right out there, like right out your back door. Plant-based medicines, right? Because when I got COVID, guess who I called? I called Arnold. And I said, hey, Arnold, I got COVID. He goes, I'll be right there. So he drives up, he drops off this concoction that he made. And 4 days later, I'm absolutely perfect because of this medicine that I got from Arnold. you know. So I am a huge proponent of, you know, plant-based medicine, you know, getting your microbiomes looked at, you know, all this stuff is, you know, is where we're gonna head. Like we're going in
Exactly.
that direction. So well, I've seen like Arnold takes people from the Tom Baker Cancer Center who'd be given like 3 or 4 months to live and cures them.
Incredible.
Cures them, right? And you know, I go sit in a sweat lodge and I'm telling you, it is the greatest spiritual experience you could ever have. It's like you're holding hands with God when you're in there. You know, it's just an incredible experience. And I really believe the Indigenous community has the greatest untapped resource of medicine on the planet.
We so agree with you.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. Yeah. So
Thank you, Theo. Thank you.
you know, it's really and to be honest with you, that's where I've done all of my healing, is in the Indigenous community. I've done all of it in the community.
Powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, on a different note, Theo, I had no idea that there was a play that came out based on your story, and it was nominated and won so many awards across Canada. And the actor Sean, who plays you brilliantly, how did the play come about?
Well, do you remember when Mike Tyson was doing his like one-man show? Do you remember when Mike Tyson was doing his one-man show and he was talking about his life? And so I saw it and I was like, I wonder if I can do that, right? I wonder if I can do that. So so I started taking some acting lessons, right? And we had written this whole script for this one-man play. And every time we got to the gun scene, I would grab the gun and start laughing hysterically. Okay, you know, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this in a serious way. So what happened was she went out and found Sean, and so basically it's a one-man play. It's my whole entire book turned into a one-man play. And he does the whole entire play on synthetic ice. So it's an actual hockey rink, and he does the whole thing on synthetic ice. It's absolutely outstanding. It's incredible. It is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And he looks like me. He talks like me. It's like, it is so cool. And you know, it's been hugely successful only because of him, because he's so good. He's so good at what he does.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to be on Tucker Carlson soon. When?
I was supposed to be, but apparently they're more they're worried about the Ukraine thing. So they said they would get in touch with me after that. I was actually on Newsmax a couple nights ago, which is another right-wing television station in the United States. So it was it was good. But I'd love to be on Tucker Carlson. Who wouldn't be? You know, he's like the most watched guy on TV in the whole entire world, you know? So,
Yes.
but the Laura Ingraham thing was really awesome too. So, you know, and
Tell us a little bit about FMCP with Dale.
oh yeah. So I get invited to go to this Alberta Prosperity Project sort of meeting up in Edmonton, and I don't really want to go, you know, but my friend dragged me up there. And so anyways, everybody's talking and, you know, they have this whole plan together. And I was like, you know what, I got to stand up and say something. And I said, this is a great plan. All this is good. But I go, where in your plan are we healing people? Like, when are we going to deal with the trauma? Like, when are we going to deal with the trauma? Because I go, if you deal with people's trauma, guess what? This will work. This is going to work, right? And sure enough, as soon as I said that, Svetlana was sitting in the back, and she jumped in, and then we had a great conversation. Svetlana and I had a great conversation, and then I met Dale, and Dale's like a 67-year-old man. He's wearing like a custom tailored suit, and we sit down at a table, and within 5 seconds, he's talking about neuroscience. And I'm like, who is this guy? So he invites me to have lunch a couple days later in Calgary. I think it might have even been the next day. So I go there, I have lunch, and, really loved this guy. He's such a smart guy and all this. And so like the third day I went back there, he said to me, would you like to be the president of, First Merchants Capital Partners? And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And so I've been there 2 weeks and having the time of my life, and my brain is working again. It's, it's been really cool. It's been great. Svetlana's part of our group now too. She's the COO. So, we're having a blast, and we're all awake, and we're all, everything that we're doing is geared towards, the awakening and the light and all this amazing stuff that's happening. So yeah, I'm excited to where we're headed, and we've got a big meeting there on the 2nd too. We're going to go meet some more people that I think can really, really help with what you guys are doing. Because, I'm sort of a connector, right? I get asked to go hang out with lots of people who got lots of ideas, and so there's lots of people trying to do what you guys are doing, but I haven't seen anybody that's as organized, has all the pillars down, everything that's needed. And so I'm going to try and connect you guys to money. I'm going to try to connect you guys to people that are thinking the same way, because I think what you guys are doing is exactly where we need to go moving forward, especially with what happened tonight in Ottawa. Like, we just need to tear the whole thing down and start over again, because it's just a complete gong show, and obviously all you people are here for a reason, and we can do this. We can do it.
Thank you, Theo. I know there's quite a few people that want to ask you some
Sure.
questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we do, where can everyone purchase your book, Conversations?
Yeah, go onto my website, theofleury.life, and you can order the book right off the website. So
thank you, Theo, and thank you for the amazing gift. I love how it's written. One of my favorite all-time books was Conversations with God, and that you created that same formatting, and it's just such an easy read, powerful, and it just keeps one so wanting to know more.
Yeah, well, it was an amazing project to do. Like, it was so great. And like, if you ever get a chance to have Kim, you should get Kim to come and come on with you guys. She is like,
that would be amazing.
She's like the best. Well, and you know what? Sherry Strong was living on Bowen Island, and we went to visit her while we were writing the book. And what an amazing few days we had at Sherry's place. It was absolutely incredible. So
Sherry's incredible. She is our lead for our health and wellness committee here in Alberta.
Well, you got the best person you could possibly have doing that, for sure. Yeah.
You guys are making me cry.
Thank you, Sharon.
Well, she was the one that got me thinking about food. We were both speaking at the same conference in Calgary, and I was standing right beside her booth, and I was like, "Who are you?" You know? And I looked terrible. I was like out of shape, and skin was pale, and all kinds of stuff. And Sherry was like,
Can
"We
I
can
tell
fix
you
all
a
that."
quick story
And so,
about that?
yes, tell us that story.
When I met Theo, we're the same age. I thought he was 10 years older than me. I'm not kidding.
Mm,
And we started working together, and then we did a breakfast television spot 3 months later in Calgary. And he got there before I got there, and I had not long been living in Canada, and all the television, most of it I did, it was in Australia, and they did hair and makeup. And I was like, I walked in and I looked at him and I like, holy, because the last time I saw him was at the event, and all our work was virtual pretty much. And I said, did you get makeup done? And he's like, no. And he looked 10 years younger than me. And I was just like, it was amazing. The transformation was remarkable. Yeah.
That was all that juice. It was all that healthy juice that I was on. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just put out here to our listeners. Alan, I'm just going to go from left to right here. Alan?
I was just kind of wondering if possibility to do a sweat lodge with you sometime.
Sure. Are you in Calgary?
I'm in Innisfil, just north. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I really like, I've had some experience with the natives, and some of those guys I feel sorry for, but there was actually a shaman over in Skookumchuck area that he went to see, and he was just a trash can, and he got totally healed.
Yeah.
Totally healed.
For sure. Yeah.
It's not just the herbs, it's the connecting with your higher self too, right?
100%.
So I'd like to give that a whirl sometime, yeah.
It's about acquiring tools, right? We're on this earth acquiring tools, right? And, I always tell people, try everything.
Yeah.
Right? Try it all. Mm-hmm. And then eventually you'll find your like 2, 3, or 4 go-to things that, calm you down.
Theo, I can send you Alan's information.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
That'd be good. Yeah, and then phone number and the whole works. That'd be good.
Thank you, Alan.
Well, thanks, guys. That was great. Thanks.
Great question, Alan. Thank you. Yeah. Brian.
Yes, thanks, Theo. I'm familiar with your story. I've been clean and sober for 18 years, so
nice.
I just wanted to throw a little bit of humor into this heavy conversation. I wrote down a few different things. I'm going to try and get through this quick.
Okay.
I had to go to a drug and alcohol test for a job that I was applying for. And the doctor at the end of the test, he congratulates me and he says, "Yeah, Brian, you got 100%. I said, "Great. Yeah, you did all the drugs."
No kidding. No kidding.
And then there was a little bit you were talking about earlier about all the tragedy in your life. And it was just yesterday I was in a group and I was talking to some people, which I'm open about my life pretty much too. And I just basically saying my life has been full of tragedy as well. And people will ask you, well, if there's anything in your life that you could change, what would you change? And I say nothing, because this is what got me here. And I'm really liking where I am right now. And if I didn't go through that gravel road, I wouldn't be here. Yeah. So this is all really good.
I'm with you on that one. People always ask me that one all the time. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't change anything. Because
one of my main questions is, are you familiar with a lot of celebrities that are aware of this global corruption? This is something that you don't hear a lot of celebrities speak up about this stuff at all. And I'm just curious if you're familiar with many.
Great
I-
question.
I don't know a lot of people.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is that
I'm trying to think. There's Dustin Penner, who won, I think he won 2 Stanley Cups. He's from Manitoba, who's very, very vocal on Twitter.
excellent.
On Twitter. Just trying to think who else. Yeah. Not like everybody's so afraid of being canceled, right? Everybody's so afraid of, wokeism. I'm not. I know how to handle bullies.
I think you got a powerful voice and a
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah, because I don't put up with bullshit. Like I really don't. Like if people come at me on social media, I go right back at them. You know?
Me too.
Yeah. And that's how you avoid getting canceled, right? You just stand up for yourself, right? And, the interesting thing is that, I told this abuse story, right? So I'm a victim, right? So everybody just assumes that I'm a victim, I'm just a pushover now that I told my story. What's really interesting is all the abusers out themselves every time they go after me, right?
So true.
They're abusers. They are abusers because they think that I'm still a victim, right? So
Thank you.
it's quite interesting.
DK.
Yeah, thanks for your story. Yeah, it's been quite an interesting listening experience. I had one question, but then someone else asked something, which makes it 2 questions. But I'll put the 2 together. Someone asked in the chat. I think it's really neat, especially if you consider that you said that your trauma gave you the insight for recognizing that what the government is doing to us now is almost, and that was why your depression came back, because there are parallels between what you went through personally and what the government is doing to us collectively. And someone asked, so is there a reason for Trudeau? Which it's interesting because I'd heard something like that before. So is like, because you said your trauma is your gift. So in the larger sense, they talked about 5D. Can what we're going through be a gift for something, greater to appear?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Well, if I didn't go through my process of healing, I would have never met all you cool people that are trying to change the world, right? The number one goal for me, and the reason why I do this, is I want to eliminate pain and suffering on the planet. I want to eliminate pain and suffering. And I can't do that unless I have my own experience, right? I wouldn't have been able to do it. And, I wouldn't have run into you tonight, DK, if I wasn't on this path. And there's no coincidences. We're all supposed to be right here, right now. We're all supposed to be here. This isn't coincidence, right? And like I said, when I surrendered, almost 6,000 days ago, this is what happens, right? Is I have this incredible faith and this incredible belief that we are all here to change the world, right? All of us. We can all change the world. We have that much power within us. And when you put it on a collective place, because my background is team. I played team sports for 40 years, right? So I know how to build teams, and I know how to build winning teams. And I can identify winning teams very easily. And when I met Svetlana and Karen and Sherry and Trent, and everybody said you guys were involved in this project, I was like, okay, I get it, right? And because the group has so much energy, right? spirituality is a word that people get triggered by. So I use the word energy now instead of spirituality. Body, mind, and energy. Body, mind, and energy. And if we all, like I said, doing the 5D stuff, doing meditation, doing all these things, you're going to get to a higher vibration. You're going to be thinking completely different than everybody else on the planet, right? And that's why I wasn't fooled by the pandemic. I wasn't fooled by it at all. I knew right away what they were doing, how they were doing it, all of these things, right? I knew exactly what they were doing. And that's when I started speaking out. Well, I don't know if you saw the whistleblower video that's out there. What's his name? Edward. Edward Dowd. Edward Dowd is a BlackRock whistleblower, and he was on InfoWars, and absolutely, it's on my Twitter feed. I posted it last night, so if you want to go watch the video. And basically what he said is Wall Street knows about the vaccine, that it's shit, okay? They know it. And they said that because all the Wall Street guys were coerced into taking the vaccine, they're pissed. They are pissed off. Right. And so they said that the Moderna's stock is going to go to zero within probably the next 2 weeks. Pfizer's stock will be worth $10. And if that happens, the whole house of cards falls completely flat.
I was just going to say it's going to fall like a deck of cards.
Yeah. And the insurance companies, because of the amount of people that are dying from the vaccine, are also involved too. And the morgues and the funeral homes.
Yes.
Right. So he studied all of it. He's got all of the data, and now he's just like, he's on a mission to be on as many podcasts as he possibly can, just blowing the whistle on these guys.
Brilliant. So
Trudeau can have whatever power he wants. He's done. He's done. He's done. His narrative is done. His narrative is done. That you have nothing to be afraid of. He is in full panic mode. He's scared. He's wearing his Depends diaper every day to HOC because he knows that his time is coming to an end.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. So, I don't want to take up so much. Okay, let me ask. I have two more. But okay. There's a kid who was probably in the same place you were with he said it's a pistol to the mouth.
Yeah.
Let's say he or she is watching this right now. And they're watching you, they're watching me ask you this question.
Yeah.
And you need to hear the right answer, otherwise it's over for them. What do you tell that kid?
Well, I had to go to that place to figure out that I actually wanted to live and I didn't want to die. Right. I had to go to that place, where I was like a millisecond away from pulling the trigger. And it was divine intervention, because this little voice, came inside my head. It said, "You've never quit anything in your life. Why are you quitting now?" And that allowed me to take the gun and throw it into the desert. And I chose to live, right? I chose to live. And then I got sober shortly after that. And then, I found my family in the Indigenous community, and I just been on this incredible healing journey for the last 6,000 days. So and yeah, and all I had left was I had just a little tiny bit of hope left. And I always tell people, when you have hope, you can move mountains, right? And I took that little thread of hope and turned it into, this amazing life, and, these amazing opportunities that, that I get to be with people like you. This is what gets me out of bed every day, is having the opportunity to be with people, like-minded people want to heal, people want to change, that kind of stuff. So, you may think that you're alone, but if you can pick yourself up and dust yourself off and pray, I pray a lot, and yeah.
Grateful for you,
So,
Theo.
but yes, but nobody's been selling hope in the last 2.5 years. None of these people are selling hope, right? That's where a group like us here, 112 people, your hope. You guys are all people who can provide hope to other people, right?
Thank you very much, Theo. With that, I yield.
Thanks.
Thank you, DK. And to your friends, I'm so grateful that you're here, and we all love you. We send you love. We're all going to get through this. Thank you.
Oh yeah, we're winning. We are winning. We are winning.
We got so much power inside of us.
Turn off your TV.
Yeah.
Then you're really gonna be winning. Turn it off.
Diane.
Thank you, Karen. And Theo, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Diane.
I've had a few questions, but they've all been answered. But
Okay.
I've got another one along the way. So if you don't mind,
Yeah.
this is a really quick one, and I'm sure I know the answer, because you wouldn't be here today if the answer was not what I think it is. You've obviously forgiven your abuser?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, I'm just wondering if you could.
Do you want me to tell you the story? Because it's
Sure.
probably the best story I have about forgiveness. So
Sure. Perfect.
When I was writing Conversations with a Rattlesnake, Kim said to me one day, she's like, "How do you feel about forgiveness?" And I was like, "Dude, not gonna happen. Why me? Why do I get? What?" And so she's like, "Stop." She goes, "I just want you to think about forgiveness." I was like, "Okay, I can do that." So anyways, we go back to that prison, this prison, like, I don't know, there's something in that prison that, I don't know, just so many great things have happened to me in that prison. So we're back in that prison, and like, we got 400 of the baddest dudes on the planet, and then the 200 people that work with these guys. So it's just like trauma everywhere. Okay. So we're having this incredible conversation with like bank robbers, murderers, child molesters, you name it. But we're having a great conversation, and they're involved in this conversation. So I look out into the audience, and there's a kid sitting in the very back row in the gym, and he's like, can't even sit in his chair. He's just like he's fired up. So I say, "You got something to say?" He says, "Yeah." He says, and the first thing out of his mouth was, he said, "Theo Fleury," says, "you're my hero." I was like, wow, okay. We're in prison. Where's this going? And so he says, "As you can see," he says, "I'm not the biggest guy in the world." And he said, "I used to be a really great hockey player." And he said, when I was 14 years old, he said, I grew up, on the north end of Winnipeg. It's a really bad area. And he said, I got involved with the wrong crowd. And he said, I started selling drugs. And he said, I've been in and out of jail ever since. I was like, okay. Then he said, "You'll never guess who I was with 3 weeks ago in Grande Cache, Alberta." I said, "I don't know. Who were you with?" He said, "I was with Graham James, the guy that abused me. He was in jail with my abuser." Okay. So he said, he said, Theo, because you're my hero, he said, my sole intent while I was in that prison with this guy was I was going to beat the crap out of him for you. Okay. But he said, Graham is very heavily guarded because everybody wants to beat the shit out of this guy. Okay. So he said, I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. He said, I got my chance. He said, the guards left his room, and he said, I went into the room and he wasn't there. So he said, I started searching around. He said, I went to the left side of the bed. He wasn't there. He said, I walked over to the right side, and there he was, curled up in a ball in the fetal position in the corner of the room. And he said, I didn't do anything. You know what I said to the kid? I said, you're my hero for not doing anything. And right in that moment, remember, she said, think about forgiveness. And there it was. There it was. Because somebody who's curled up in a ball in the fetal position, laying on the floor, that person's in pain and they're suffering. And guess what? I'm in a prison speaking. My life's great. I'm doing great, right? And I got to finally unattach myself from my abuser. Right in that moment, I got, this incredible opportunity to forgive myself and forgive him at the same time, because I had compassion in my heart. I had empathy in my heart. And before that, I didn't. I was still angry. I was still full of rage, all of these things. And yeah. And so the two greatest lessons that I've learned in my life have come from the guys in the prison. First thing they taught me was compassion. Second thing they taught me was forgiveness. The two greatest lessons that I needed to learn on this healing journey was compassion and forgiveness.
That is incredible, Theo.
Can I just quickly ask another follow-up question on that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you've done a lot of speaking, you've met a lot of people, and everybody has a story. So everybody is loading their story onto you. Mm-hmm. What do you do to shield yourself from absorbing all of that pain? Yeah. Like how do you stay sane?
Well, I've had 3 meltdowns since I've been doing this. And then somebody told me about crystals, carrying crystals around in my pocket to get rid of the energy. But what I try to do is I don't try to attach any emotion to what I'm doing, right? I can't fix people. Like I can't fix anybody, right? And I'm the classic enabler, right? I'm an enabler, right? Because I grew up in an alcoholic and drug home. So if you grow up in that environment, you become codependent and an enabler, right? And so I had to stop being an enabler, because when I first started this, I was like involved in every single person that came up to me after. I was involved in their life at the beginning, because I thought I need to do this and I need to do that. Well, I crashed and burned like really, really hard the first time. And I went back into therapy, and, then I went like 4 or 5 more years and then had another meltdown. And I've been pretty good ever since, because I have my toolbox is really good now. And then a couple days ago, a guy named Trent Patterson called me and has been helping me the last week, and I feel incredible and amazing. So thank you to Trent for looking after me and taking care of me.
My pleasure. Thanks for the shout outs, brother.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate it.
You are a lifesaver. So I'm so excited to be working with you and learning from you. And yeah, so I'm excited.
Thank you. Well, anyone can do these techniques, pranic energy healing. I'm an instructor and I'd love to share with anyone that's interested. So let me know in the future.
I have an amazing backyard in Calgary, so maybe we could do like a weekend at my house where everybody just comes and we'll hang out and we'll heal.
That would be amazing.
Sounds
Yeah.
amazing. We actually did a healing circle here tonight in Lloydminster. And as you can see, our dear friend Savannah, she's sleeping hard.
That's good.
But, big things are happening here. Even tomorrow, we're doing some healing on Mother Earth. So imagine you can find her energy centers just as you can on a human body. So we're going to actually be cleaning the land and activating in the name of healing. So it's a very exciting time.
Thank you for all you do, Trent. Thank you.
Thanks,
Diana.
Karen.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to Sheila and then Rita.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't get my mic to work. Hi, Theo. You spoke to my soul tonight. I just wanted to let you know that. I have been, since this whole thing started, I felt like something was never right. It was like just this pit in my stomach. There was a sense of like uneasy in the world, but I could never really understand it. And I come from a birth of trauma. So I was born into trauma.
Okay.
And I really, truly believe that. My question to you is, I've had many people say to me, Sheila, you should write a book. You should really write a book. Your life has just been so crazy. You should write a book. And my question is when you wrote your first book, did you actually find a lot of healing through that? Because I'm not a writer and I've never been a real good writer per se, but some people say that is very therapeutic for them. And I just wonder if that really was your real start of your journey, when you actually sat down and had to dissect your trauma through your life and what these things had happened to you.
Yeah, it was hugely cathartic, right? To put all that stuff on paper and look at it and be okay with it, right? So yeah. Well, and I don't know if you guys know, but I'm also a singer and a songwriter as well. And so I did a whole album. It's actually on iTunes and Spotify. And basically what I did is I took my book and I turned it all into music. And so I wrote the book, and then I started into this music project, and the two of those things combined was absolutely so incredibly healing, and it was so much fun. It was an incredible project. We do like a rockabilly country sort of vibe, and it's pretty fun. So
You're so
and
cool.
I don't know if any of you guys know the sports game called Madden Football. I wrote a song that's on the 2018 Madden football game. So as well. So
that's so cool. Well, thank you for answering my question. That's all I had.
If you are looking to write a book, where do you live, Sheila?
I'm currently residing in Red Deer.
Okay. So if you go on Google and Google ghostwriters in Alberta,
okay,
there'll be a whole bunch of names that appear. And then I would just interview a bunch of them and then find the person that you connect with and write the book with that person.
Thank you.
And self-publishing is pretty easy these days too. So
Rita, go ahead.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks a lot for inviting me tonight. I really appreciate it. Theo, I just want to send you some energy right now. I'm sending you some Reiki energy and pranic healing. And
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to thank you for coming out and sharing your story with us tonight. As an energy worker, I'm feeling a lot of energy right now, and it's combined energy of all of us on the page right now. And I just want to send out a big hug to you all, and I'm sure you're feeling it right about now because I'm sending it to all of you. And I just want to, from my heart, I'm sure we'll meet in the future, and I look forward to that day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. What a beautiful gift. And I know there's so many coaches out there that are coaching people how to get the big car and how to get the big dream home. And I think that era is over. I mean, yes, we are definitely going to be opening ourselves up to achieving our dreams. However, I do know that the true essence now of where we all need to go and to support people is in what you're talking about here today. So thank you so much, Theo, for all that you do. And I'm just so grateful, and I'm blessed to call you a friend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you for being here, everyone. You are on the right path, and we are all raising our vibration. Together we rise. Thank you. And if you want to stay for the meditation, you're welcome. And if you need to go, I get it. Have an awesome rest of your week. Lots of love, everyone.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Theo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Theo.
Theo.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, you guys too.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Theo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Theo.
Thanks, Theo.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Theo. Looking forward to the healing session in your backyard.
Yes, absolutely.
Up to
Yeah,
that.
we'll do it for sure.
Beautiful. Okay, we're just going to focus on our breath. I'm just going to mute everyone. Okay. So just sitting back with your spine straight. You might want to just stretch. We've been sitting here a while. And just breathing in all the powerful words that Theo shared with all of us this evening. Just allowing those words to integrate into every cell of our being. And we're just slowing down our breath. Breathing right down into our diaphragm. Just allowing that breath to be a rhythmic vibration. You can be breathing in to the count of 5 and then out to the count of 5. And then as soon as you have that rhythm going, you can let go of the numbers and just trust in your intuition that you're just giving yourself that space and the knowingness that you are breathing in life force energy. I love how synchronicity works. Someone brought up how we can absorb the pain of others. And I do believe that because the collective right now is feeling so much emotional pain, that no matter where we are, we're tuning into that collective. And so we can feel the stress, we can feel the anxieties, we can feel so much, and it can create this overwhelming sensation. So as you're breathing slowly and deeply right now, I'm going to be sharing with you I call it a protection prayer. And you can say God or source, whatever the God is of your understanding. And then after the prayer, then we're going to focus on breath. And so just breathe these words in as I say them out loud. I pray to God to please cleanse, heal, shield, and protect me, all my family members, friends, and our surroundings, such as our home, workplace, cars, and places of recreation from dark and negative forces. Please cleanse, heal, balance, and open up all our energy centers and channels of communication with the light as needed, and cover and protect them when not needed. I form an intent not to be possessed and influenced by any spirits or the work of dark or negative forces. Please keep me loving, giving, caring, forgiving, and humble at all times. I also form an intention to accept my light within and to achieve my soul's purpose that I planned in heaven by dedicating my life to the light. Take a deep breath, and I'll continue. I request my protector angels of the light to collect and remove all foreign entities, dark shields, dark energies, dark devices, nanotechnology, and dark connections from my body, aura, soul, energy center, and cord. Fill all the holes and tunnels in my body, aura, soul, energy centers, and cords with golden liquid light. Please locate all of my missing soul parts from this life and from all my past lives from the beginning of time and bring them back. Cleanse them, heal them, fill them with light, and integrate them with my soul now. Clamp the cords to the soul parts that cannot be brought back at this time. And now you can visualize or imagine a brilliant, shimmering, vibrant liquid light coming from above your head and going through the top of your head and filling in and illuminating your entire body. Illuminating from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers, the tips of your toes, cleansing, healing every part of you, every organ, and every cell of your body. And even if you're not able to imagine, just place the intention that this is so. Taking a deep breath in and releasing, letting go. And now imagine this light spreading an arm's length around you, below your feet, above your head, in front of you, behind you, and on both sides of you, creating a wonderful bubble, a shield of brilliant light around you. When we have tuned in and tapped in to the power of our imagination, to the power of the light within ourselves, nothing out there can ever affect us in a negative way anymore. This is about us now reclaiming our divine power, claiming our personal power. And now we're just going to sit in silence. Silence is our friend. And we know this to be true, as the dark forces have tried to plug us in to everything in their world. And we are reclaiming our power now and unplugging and choosing to discover who we are within. Keep focusing on your breath. Just allow your mind to focus on the love that is you. And whenever you're ready, you can just open your eyes, taking one final deep belly breath in, that life force energy, and letting go. So blessed to be with all of you. Thank you for being here each week. Namaste. Thank you again, Theo. We love you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. That was beautiful.
Wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for holding space for me tonight. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen. Thank you.
It was a very healing evening tonight. Thank you, Karen.
Yes, it was 100% on so many
And
levels.
I was just going to say the same thing on so many levels. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow night.
You bet. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.